Hello students, my name is Dr. Anchal. In the today's lecture, we are going to discuss about the components of our digestive system. So let's start. So in this diagram, you can see the components of digestive system are shown here. So let's try to understand this diagram. So here you can see, for example, we ingest food with the help of our mouth. So ingestion of food is there through mouth. Okay, and here you can see a structure is there which is the pharynx. After that you can see esophagus is there, then a J-shaped bag-like structure. As you can see here, there is a J-shaped bag-like structure which is called as the stomach. And then what is opening here? Your small intestine part. Then after that there is the large intestine. So let's try to understand about all these parts. So what are the components of the digestive system? Your mouth is the first part of the digestive system. As I told you, mouth is the first part of the digestive system where the process of digestion begins. Never confuse with that the process of digestion starts from the stomach. No, your process of digestion starts from the mouth itself. For example, the digestion of carbohydrates. That starts from the mouth itself, right? So mouth contain glands which are known as salivary glands. So if gland word is there, that means they are going to secrete something. So salivary glands secrete saliva. As the name itself indicates, that salivary glands means they are going to secrete saliva. So these salivary glands secrete an enzyme, salivary amylase. Now in our saliva, which enzyme is present? Salivary amylase. What is the other name of salivary amylase enzyme? Its other name is ptyalin enzyme. Okay, that digests the carbohydrates such as the starch into maltose. Now starch is a polysaccharide. If I say carbohydrates, so they are divided into monosaccharides, disaccharides and polysaccharides, right? So starch is a polysaccharide. So polysaccharide should get split into the smaller component which is the monosaccharide. Okay, so here your starch get converted into the maltose which is a monosaccharide and it is a simple sugar. So which enzyme is helping in this process? Next question arises, which enzyme is helping in this process? Salivary amylase or ptyalin enzyme is helping in this process. So it digests the carbohydrates such as starch into maltose, and your maltose is a simple sugar, right? So this is all about the mouth. So next we are going to discuss the pharynx. So as you have seen in this diagram, your mouth is there. Okay, through mouth what will take place? Ingestion of food take place through our mouth, and after mouth, as you can see here, there is a structure which is the pharynx. So let's try to understand about the pharynx. So pharynx is a part of the digestive system as well as our respiratory system. A NCERT line is there. So sometimes MCQ can be framed from here, that which is the common passage for both food and air. So our pharynx is the common passage for food and air. Pharynx is the common passage for food and air. This is a NCERT line. So pharynx is a part of the digestive system as well as respiratory system. It pushes the food into the esophagus. So as you can see, there is a thin tube-like structure which is the esophagus. A tubular structure, a thin tube-like structure which is the esophagus. So as we have just studied here that your pharynx pushes the food into the esophagus. So if you relate with this diagram, then you can clearly see that your pharynx is there. So this pharynx is going to push the food into this lower part which is the esophagus. So after that, as you can see, there is a epiglottis. This term is very important, epiglottis. Sometimes question can be framed from here. Okay, that what is this epiglottis? So if this epiglottis prevents the entry of food into the trachea, very important. Which structure prevents the entry of the food into the trachea? So which is going to prevent it? Epiglottis. What is epiglottis? It is a cartilaginous flap. Cartilaginous flap. So if I am saying cartilaginous flap, that means it is made up of the cartilage. It is a flap which is made up of the cartilage. So NCERT point is there, which is very important. Cartilaginous flap. It is a cartilaginous flap which is the epiglottis, and it prevents the entry of food into the trachea. Okay, very important point. Next is the esophagus. Esophagus is also known as the food pipe that passes the food to the stomach. If you relate it here, you can see your stomach is there. Okay, so means before the esophagus there is the pharynx. So after that there is a tube-like structure which is the esophagus, then stomach is there as we can see here. So your esophagus is the food pipe that passes the food to the stomach. So food will come here. Okay, food will be passed down from this esophagus to your stomach portion. So the process of movement of food into the esophagus, from the esophagus to the stomach, that is called as the peristalsis. Very important term. What is peristalsis? Whenever this movement is being taking place, movement of food from the term which is the peristalsis, So it is a muscular process. Means your muscles are involved here for the movement. Next is the stomach. So stomach is the major part of the digestive system where most of the digestion occurs. Stomach secretes the gastric juices which contain hydrochloric acid. Very important. Which is the composition? Question can be asked, which of the following is the composition of the gastric juice? So gastric word is related to the stomach. Our gastric juice is secreted by the stomach. So if I say about the composition of the gastric juice, so it contains hydrochloric acid which is the HCl, and also it contains sodium chloride in small amount. But mainly what is there? Which acid is there? Hydrochloric acid. Okay, so hydrochloric acid is secreted by the gastric cells which are known as the parietal cells. This question is very important from NEET point of view. In the previous year exam also it was asked. So it is important question. Okay, so these are the main points related to the stomach here. So next is the small intestine. So small intestine receives the partially digested food from the stomach. So you can find it very interesting if you relate with the diagram. So here you can see there is the stomach. So after stomach there is the small intestine part. Means after the stomach, means most of the digestion that took place in the stomach only there. But the partially digested food, okay, that will further, partially means incompletely digested food, that will further move to the small intestine region here. So the small intestine receives the partially digested food from the stomach. Okay, and small intestine is composed of three parts. What are those three parts? They are duodenum, jejunum and ileum. These are the three parts of small intestine. So next is the large intestine. So large intestine, what are the three parts of large intestine? Cecum, colon and rectum. Cecum, colon and rectum. Okay, these are the main parts of the large intestine. Three parts of large intestine are cecum, colon and rectum. Okay, so about the small intestine, there are some important points like principal organ for absorption of nutrients. So note this point for the small intestine. Small intestine is the principal. Principal means main organ. Principal organ for absorption of nutrients. Okay. So next is the large intestine. Large intestine has three parts as we discussed. Cecum, colon and rectum. So absorption of water, some minerals and drugs, large intestine, take place in large intestine. So means if I say that in which organ or in which part absorption of nutrients take place, maximum absorption of nutrients that will take place, so that is the small intestine reason. Okay, and absorption of water, minerals and some drugs that take place in the large intestine. So this is the diagram that we discussed here. So ingestion of food is there. Okay, and peristalsis term as I cleared. Okay, peristalsis term is clear to you, I hope. Then after that we discussed about the absorption. Okay, and there is the chemical digestion of food. So if chemical digestion of food is being taking place, then enzymes are helping in this. Enzymes have role in the chemical digestion of food. For example, as we discussed that starch get converted into maltose. So salivary amylase enzyme was helping in that. So that is the chemical digestion. So mechanical digestion simply means like chewing of food, okay, which take place. Then next churning of the food which take place in the stomach. So these all consist of the mechanical digestion. Mechanical digestion. Right. So in the mechanical digestion, there is no role of enzymes. So in this way, we have just discussed an overview of the components of the digestive system. Okay, so undigested, as we know that the undigested fecal matter is removed from the body by the process called as the defecation through the anus. Okay, defecation. It is the process in which the undigested fecal matter is removed outside the body through the anus. So I hope components of the digestive system are clear to you. Main points related to it like mouth. So here we discussed main thing, salivary amylase or ptyalin enzyme. Then next pharynx we discussed, which is the common passage for food and air. And after that we discussed here epiglottis, which is the cartilaginous flap. Main point, it is the cartilaginous flap which prevents the entry of food into the trachea. So after that we discussed here about the esophagus. Okay, so here as I discussed you, the process of movement of the food from the esophagus to the stomach, that is called as the peristalsis. So peristalsis is a muscular process. Here muscles are involved for the movement. So stomach we discussed after that. Okay, so it secretes the gastric juice which contain hydrochloric acid. Main point. So HCl is secreted by the parietal cells, important, and this acid, this hydrochloric acid is helpful in removing germs and pathogens. Pathogens are disease causing microorganisms. So after that we just discussed the small intestine, three parts, duodenum, jejunum, ileum. Large intestine, three parts, cecum, colon, rectum. So next we will do in the next upcoming sessions. I hope in the 2 days lecture everything is clear. Thank you.